Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. So I'm here in front of you to discuss the introduction of the global city. So in this lesson, we will talking about the global city. At this time, we'll focus your mind on the topic the global city. It has been part of our routine that every discussion we try to familiarize the learning objectives of the lesson. For the learning objectives today, at the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain why globalization is a special phenomenon. Identify the attributes of the global city and analyze how cities serve as agent of globalization. So there are the keywords of the global city. So the first is the global city, globalization, economic power, urban sprawl, global economy, economic opportunities, economic competitiveness, centrifugation by law, center of higher learning and culture, center of political influence, and the center of authority. So to start our discussion, let me ask this question to you. If you had a chance, would you move to New York? Tokyo? How about South Korea? Maybe most of you will answer, do you want to move in New York? Maybe some of you will answer, do you want to move in Tokyo, Japan? And maybe some of you will answer Korea. And probably all of you would like to visit them in a week. Maybe some of you have already traveled to the cities you heard stories about this place. You may likewise have an idea of what these cities look like based on what you have seen in movies or television. But honestly speaking, not all have been the global city.
So why do we need study global cities? So this statement means two things. So first, globalization is spatial because it occurs in physical spaces. So you can see it when foreign investments and capital move through a city. So katong mga investors or mga investment is piliun nila nga transfer sa city so that they can expand their businesses. So also when companies build skyscrapers, so when we say skyscrapers is katunang mga tag-as kaayo nga building which is especially makita nato sa Manila or sa other cities. So people who are working in this business or Filipinos working abroad, ang tendency ana is kanang once nga kanang makatigom na sila og money or makasave na sila sa ilang makasave sila og kwarta, so they start to purchase condominiums or magpahimo sila ilang kaugalingon nga balay or magpalit og mga sasakyan. So as all these events happen, more people are driven out of the city centers to make way for the new development. So katong mga pobre nga tawo is pilion nila nga mo transfer sa another nga lugar which is para makasave sila kay once nga ang kanang lugar is mulambo or mag-globalize, so ang mga pamalito no sab is magkataas. So the second one, globalization is spatial because what makes it move is the fact that it is based in places. So for example, ani ang Los Angeles, so diri ang center sa film industry. So, it is where movies are made for global consumption. So, the main headquarters of Sony, it is located in Tokyo. So, from there, the companies coordinates the sale of its various electronics goods to branches across the world. So, in other words, cities act on globalization and globalization acts on cities. So, they are the sites as well as the mediums of globalization. So just as the internet enables and shapes global forces, so do cities.
Next is defining the global city. So what is a global city? A global city, which was also known as world cities before, are cities that serves as a center in a globalized economic system. The features of these cities include having an influence in international political affairs, home to world-renowned cultural institutions, has a large international airport, and last but not the least, home to major stock exchanges and indexes. World City was changed to Global City because of researches that was done on 1980s. These researches aim to identify the similarities and differences of these cities and also aim to identify the reasons why these cities were more prosperous compared to other cities or countries. Because of these researches, it led to what we know about globalization now, thus these cities became to be known as global cities. So a sociologist and leading theorist named Saskia Sassen was the one who popularized the term global city in the 1990s. Sassen defined global cities as strategic sites that manage and guide the global economy, and her criteria on what a global city should be is primarily economic. Her concepts of global cities is first, these cities emphasizes on the flow of information and capital. Second, these cities are major nodes in the interconnected systems of information and money. And lastly, wealth that flows facilitate financial institutions, consulting firms, accounting firms, law firms, and media organizations. Sassen identified three world cities which are New York, London, and Tokyo. These global cities are centers of global finance and capitalism, and this is where investors buy and sell shares in major corporations. New York has New York Stock Exchange, London has Financial Times Stock Exchange, and Tokyo has Nikkei. These discussions about global cities were limited to only these three cities, which made it increasingly restrictive since the global economy has been advancing ever since Sassen wrote her book. So recent commentators has been expanding the criteria of Sassen's composition of a global city. Examples of latest developments in economic power is first, the movie mecha making Los Angeles, which can now rival the Big Apples or also known as New York's cultural influence. Another example is San Francisco, which is the home of the most powerful internet companies like Facebook. Another example is the growth of the Chinese economy because of the reopening of the Shanghai Stock Exchange in late 1990, which has turned Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou into centers of trade and finance. There are also others who consider a city as a global city just because they are great places to live in, like Sydney and Melbourne. Other than the ones mentioned a while ago, Paris, France, Singapore, and Hong Kong are also examples of global cities.
Indicators of globality. So what are the attributes of global city? The economic power, economic opportunities, economic competitiveness, centers of authority, centers of political influence, centers of higher learning and culture. The foremost characteristics of global city is economic power, saying that economic power largely determines which cities are global. For example, New York. New York, say it has the largest stock market in the world, but take note, Tokyo in Japan, it houses the most number of corporate headquarters. So could you imagine, 613 company headquarters ang kakabase in Tokyo, Japan, and then 217 lang sa may New York, USA. And actually, New York and Tokyo are close competitors. Another example, ang Shanghai sa may China. Gamay ra ilang stock market compared to New York and Tokyo. But take note, it plays a critical role in the global economic supply chain. Since nga ang China ang manufactured center around the world, maong gagabantay mo, majority ng mga products sa Philippines, tas lang taon ni mo siya cover sa isa ka items kay most of the time ang nakabutang jud kay made in China. Parehas anang mga pagkaon nga junk foods kay kasagara jud made in China. Because China became the manufacturing center around the world. So most of the products in Philippines sa China ginabuhat. Okay, let's proceed to the economic opportunities. Economic opportunities in a global city make it attractive to talents from across the world. Actually, since 1970, many of our excellent and competent IT programmers and engineers from Asia have moved to San Francisco, California. So, ngano ibalhin sila sa San Francisco, California? Nga naman ta diri sa Pilipinas because they want to become part of the Silicon Valley. Kabalo mo sa Silicon Valley since kabalo mo sa sila nga ang Silicon Valley kay makita sa San Francisco, California. And take note nga ang Silicon Valley kay serves as a global center for high technology and innovation. Maong gusto jud sa mga IT programmers, engineers or even ang mga technological experts nga motrabaho sa San Francisco, California because they want to become part of Silicon Valley. Imagine nga motrabaho ka sa isa kumpanya mga high-tech ay mga gamit isa may di ganan na kay nice kayo pod. Another example, ang London, it remains a preferred destination for many Filipinos with nursing degrees. So sa London kay demand kayo ang nursing tas kasagara student nga ni graduate og nursing kay moadto jud og London para magtrabaho since kabalo sila na dakog sweldo sa gawas Pilipinas. Muna siya ang economic opportunities. So economic opportunity it makes attractive to talents from across the world. Another example, ang London, it remains a preferred destination for many Filipinos with nursing degrees. So sa London kay demand kayo ang nursing tas kasagara student nga ni graduate og nursing kay moadto jud og London para magtrabaho since kabalo sila na dakog sweldo sa gawas Pilipinas. Muna siya ang economic opportunities. So economic opportunity it makes attractive to talents from across the world. Okay, next one, to measure the economic competitiveness of a city, the Economic Intelligence Unit has added other criteria like market size, purchasing power of citizens, size of the middle class, and potential for growth. So based on the criteria, papasok mo, ambot na po diri si Singapore since kabalo naman ta na si Singapore kay gamay na bansa. So the tiny Singapore is considered as Asia's most competitive city because of its strong market, efficient and incorruptible government and livability. It also houses the regional offices of many major global corporations. So kumbaga, musunuray si Singapore kay Tokyo, Japan when it comes to Asia. Actually, according to some studies, Singapore is widely regarded as one of the safest gibaling murag safe kay siya nga lugar to live in the world with consistent low crime rates and transparent legal system, low poverty and so on. Mo kibali safe kay diya sa Singapore kay mga kibali mga buutan jud kay tao kay safe man gyud. Okay, next one, global cities are also centers of authority. Washington DC may not be as wealthy as New York, but it is the seat of American state power. So kabantay mo sa ko example kay di kayo sa makadato sa New York ang Washington DC, but is the seat of American state power maong gina-consider siya as a part of global city. Okay, it has a major landmarks di jud mawala sa list ang White House, Capitol Building, Supreme Court, Lincoln Memorial, and Washington Monument. Similarly, compared with Sydney and Melbourne, Canberra is a sleepy town and not attractive to tourists. But as Australia political capital, it is home to the country's top politicians, bureaucrats, and policy advisors. So when we say bureaucrat, it refers to a government official. So kabantay mo mong ang Canberra kay gina-consider na sad as global city kay gina-consider siya as political capital of Australia because because the majority of the government officials diri gikan or diri nagpuyo. Similarly, compared with Sydney and Melbourne, Cabrera is a sleepy town and not attractive to tourists. But as Australia political capital, it is home to the country's top politicians, bureaucrats, and policy advisors. So when we say bureaucrat, it refers to a government official. So kabantay mo mong ang Cabrera kay gina-consider na sad as global city, kay gina-consider siya as political capital of Australia because the majority of the government officials diri gikan or diri nagpuyo. Okay, next one. The cities that house major international organization may also be considered centers of political influence. For example, nato makita ang United Nations headquarters. It is in New York. How about European Union headquarters? Makita siya sa Brazil's Asian headquarters. Makita siya sa Jakarta, Indonesia. And the last is European Central Bank. It is based in the Frankfurt, Germany. And the last one is Center Higher Learning and Culture. So, global cities are center of higher learning and culture. A city's intellectual influence is seen through the influence of its publishing industry. So many of the books that people read are published in places like New York, London, and event parties. Familiar mo newspaper nga New York Times. Obviously, it carries the name of New York City, but it is far from being just a local newspaper, kay ngano di lang citizens sa Amerika ang makabasa ato ng newspaper. Even people around the world are interested to read the newspaper, the New York Times. Another example of the reasons why many tourists visit Boston is because they want to see the Harvard University. Well, kabalo naman ta nga kani nga university considered na siya as the top university. Another one, kasagara sa teenagers sa Asia kay they are moving to cities in Australia because of the leading English language universities. Okay, take note, education is currently Australia 3 largest export after coal and iron. Maong kasagara anak sa artista sa Pilipinas. Mas prefer nila ipa-eskwela sa laing bansa. Los Angeles, the center of the American film industry or movie making. Mika may be considered as a global city since na ingon nila ganiha nga nakigkompetensya na jud ang Los Angeles sa New York pag-abot sa filmmaking. But you have to take note, the center of American film industry is Los Angeles. Another one is Copenhagen, Denmark. Okay, Copenhagen, Denmark is the capital of Denmark. According sa articles, kay gamay ra jud na lugar ang Copenhagen. Pwede ra nimo siya malibot nga magbike within 30 minutes ata. Maong ang Copenhagen is not the home of major stock market unlike sa New York and Tokyo. Kay dagko gid na sila mga lugar. But it is considered a part of the global city. Why? Because culinary capitals of the world with its top restaurants incommensurate with its size. Similarly, in the Manchester, England, many prominent post-punk and new wave bands, the Joy Division kanang ikatulo, and the Smiths kanang pinakauna, and then ang Happy Mondays nga naas ikaduha hailed from this city, making it a global houses. Okay, how about in Southeast Asia? Singapore is slowly becoming a cultural center of the region. Singapore houses some of the region's top television station and news organizations. Sa ila, originally yung MTV Southeast Asia and Channel News TV. Actually, sa MTV Southeast Asia, naay Filipino artist nga na-nominate diri. And one of those artists ay si Sarah Geronimo. Since kabalom tanga siya tingog si Sarah Geronimo, tibali na nominate siya para sa MTV. Another one is various art galleries and cinemas also show paintings from artists and filmmakers from Philippines and Thailand. So very nice, 'di ba? Kay gina-featured nila ang mga artworks ng mga Pilipino and Thai. Okay, so that is Singapore. So muna to siya ang mga six indicators of globality: the economic power, economic opportunities, economic competitiveness, centers of authority, centers of political influence, centers of higher learning and culture.
So today, global cities become culturally diverse. So in a global city, one can try cuisines from different parts of the world. So for example, ani is ang Berlin and Tokyo. Since kanang large ilang Turkish population, so ga-offer sila og mga Turkish food so that one can try Turkish food even they are out of Turkey. So another one, Manila is not very global because of dearth of foreign residents. So dili gamatter na sad ang mga foreigners nga nagpuyo sa Pilipinas. So kay gamay raman ang mga foreigners nga gapuyo sa Pilipinas since kanang ang mga kung makaasawa ang atong mga kababayan o mga foreigner is dili man sila ga-stay diri sa Pilipinas kun dili dito sa ilang mga nabana nga foreigner. So also Singapore is a global because it has a foreign population of 38%.
Today we will tackle about the challenges of global cities. To start with, let us know the definitions of global cities, wherein it is a center that enjoys a significant competitive advancements and serves as the hub of globalized economic system. When we say globalized economic system, it is a term that we use to describe the rising independence of the world economies. Global cities conjure up images of fast-paced, exciting cosmopolitans lifestyle, but those are lacking. Global cities has its undersides. First is the global inequality. A global inequality is a growing inequality in income and wealth marks modern capitalism, and it negatively affects nearly every aspect of our lives, especially those of the working class. It is and will continue to be the central issue of politics in almost every nation on earth. Second one is poverty, where it defines having not enough money to make basic needs, including food, clothing, and shelter. Most of people experience a lack of financial to support their living. However, poverty is much more than just not having enough money. The third one is tremendous violence, wherein from the word violence, it is the use of physical force with intent, effects, and reasonable likelihood of causing pain, harm, injury, or damage to any person or property. Global cities created a winner and a loser. Why there is a winner and a loser in globalization? It is because globalization refers to the facts that the world is becoming one large marketable instead of many smaller ones. However, there are winner and loser with globalizations. Consumer tends to win unless the drive for low price means that they will lose their job. Richard Florida notes that ecologists have found that by concentrating their populations in smaller areas, cities and metros decrease human encroachment on natural habitat. Some pathologies of global cities based on the research of Chicago Council on Global Affairs. Cities can be sustainable because of their density. Cities and metros decrease human encroachment on natural habitat. Denser settlement patterns yield energy savings apartment building. Cities with extensive public transportations, people tend to drive less and thereby cut carbon. Not all cities are dense like New York or Tokyo. Some cities like Los Angeles are urban sprawls with a massive freeways that force residents to spend money for their car and gas. Cities like Manila, Bangkok, and Mumbai are dense. They are lack of public transportations and government inability to regulate their industries. Some example of dense cities are like Dhaka, Bangladesh, where lead the ranking of cities with the highest population density in 2022 with 30,093 residents per square kilometer. Because of the sheer size of city population, urban areas consume most of the world energy. Cities only cover 2% of the world landmass, but they consume 78 of global energy. Therefore, if carbon emission must be cut to prevent global warming, this massive energy consumptions in cities must be curbed. Carbon emissions refers to the steaming from the burning of fossil fuels and the manufacture of cement. They include carbon dioxide produced during consumption of solid, liquid, and gas fuels as well as gas flaring. Why there is increasing carbon emissions? It is because of the use of train, buses, and planes. Human activity is the cause of increased greenhouse gas concentrations. Instead of traveling food by buses or trains, some solutions called vertical farm. Vertical farm is the practice of growing crops in vertically stacked layer. It often incorporates controlled environment agriculture, which aims to optimize plants' growth and soil farming techniques such as hydroponic, aquaponic, and aeroponic. The major terror attacks of recent years have also targeted cities. Cities, especially those with global influence, are obvious for terrorists. 9/11 attack World Trade Center, New York, November 2015 attack in Paris by Islamic States of Iraq and the Levant ISIL. Now that Donald Trump is the president, security experts believe that properties around the world carry his names are the target of this terror attack.
The Global City and the Poor. According to this presentation, it was stated that the massive inequality was very pronounced in cities. As we see in our surroundings and all over the cities nga daghan na gyud kaayo og economic violence as well as wage inequality, homelessness, racial gaps in education, racial discrimination, and child poverty ug uban pang massive inequality. So, ang economic inequality kay it gives impacts on rise to poor public health and illiteracy, and it increasing crime rates, fueling political instability and eventually establishing the society. Ang uban nga large cities, particularly sa Scandinavia, kay nakakita sila og way on how to mitigate inequality or unsaon nga malizen through state-led social redistribution programs. And yet, daghan pa nga cities, particularly those in developing countries, are sites of contradiction. Sa mga places like Mumbai, Jakarta, and Manila, common kaayo nga makita ang gleaming buildings tapad sa massive shantytowns. Atong makita sa picture nga ang tapad sa mga buildings kay mga poor lang or simple homes. So makita nato diri ang global cities and the poor alongside. Places that have given examples was Mumbai, Jakarta, and Manila. Sa gawas nga bayan or outskirts sa New York and San Francisco kay mga poor urban enclaves, unya ang mga namuyo didto kay mga Africans, Americans ug immigrant families, mga tao nga that comes to live permanently in a foreign country, who are often denied opportunities at a better life. So ingani mga tao dito, that's why pobre sila. Gentrification. So what is gentrification? It means that a phenomenon or driving out the poor in favor of newer, wealthier residents. Mao ni ang kakahitabo nga ginabalhin ang mga poor people dito sa bag-o nga lugar ug mas nindot nga puy-an nila. So, in Australian cities, ang mga poor Aboriginal Australians kay they have been most acutely or most intense bitaw nga mga maapektuhan sa gentrification. Let's proceed. Sa France, ang mga poor nga Muslims migrants are forced out of Paris and have clustered around ethnic enclaves known as banlieue. So lahi gid sa France kay ginahanay nila or gilahi nila Ang mga poor Muslims and migrants o ginapahawag yun nila sa pares o gi-cluster nila or gi-form around sa enclaves o gitawag nga banlieue. In most of the world's global cities, the middle class also thinning out. Nagkagamay gyud ang numbers sa middle class people. In places pud sa New York, there are high ruling American investments bankers, or they have risking large amounts of money whose their children are raised by Filipino maids. So this was the global city and the poor.
So in conclusion, global cities are urban centers that benefit significantly from medium-scale globalization. So competitive advantages and acts as a hub in a system of commerce that is increasingly global. So apparently, due to their unequal remaining locations, these serve excellent global entrepreneurs and global servants. So one of the biggest negative repercussions of globalization is inequality, which is outstanding to see. So they are locations where the combination of culture, ideas, and customs produce a huge wealth, making global cities generally operate as nodes of globalized environment and act as magnet to draw people, their entire visitors, investors, and businesses from throughout the world.